My name is Janan Shabbat. I am a National Events and Outreach Manager for CAIR, Council on American Islamic Relations. It's the largest Muslim civil rights organization in the country. It has been around for 24 years. So before I go into the work that CAIR does, I really want to thank my girl Shakira. Where's Shakira? There she is. For recommending me for this event to come out here and speak today. I'm truly very honored. Chrissy, Campbell, Lakaya, everybody, you guys have been so wonderful and so welcoming. And I hope that you guys are going to enjoy my presentation today. So what I'm going to talk about is activism. And you know, my journey into activism started probably when I was 5 years old. I am a Palestinian American. My parents came here from Palestine, and they really wanted to make sure that my siblings and I were connected to our culture and our heritage. And so every summer we would go to Palestine. My parents wanted us to know the history. They wanted us to visit the refugee camps. They wanted us to know the struggle that our ancestors had faced. And so I think probably the first time I protested, I was probably 5 years old. And you know, some of the first words my parents taught us was free, free Palestine, which is something that we still use today in a lot of rallies and protests. That picture is from a protest back in December in Washington, D.C. I led the rally of about 3,500 people down Pennsylvania Avenue in response to our president's decision to move the embassy to Jerusalem. And so I feel very grateful that my parents have given me the opportunities that they've had, that they've taught me a lot of the skills that I need in order to be a social justice activist. So my journey started, I think the first time I led a rally, I was in high school, so around your age. So don't ever think that just because you're in high school that you don't have the same opportunities as someone who's seasoned. To be honest, I would welcome the younger generation to take over some of this work because it is so overwhelming at times. So if you feel like you can do these things, then you should go out and do it. And I'll talk about how you can get involved a little later in my presentation. So, you know, as someone who identifies as Palestinian American, as a Muslim woman who started wearing hijab at the age of 14, I became a very visible target in our society. And I felt very lucky in high school because I look at the state of our schools nowadays. I hear stories of bullying in schools, of students from all different backgrounds, and it really hurts me because as a high schooler, I had so much support from both students and faculty to where I never felt that I had to defend myself or that I had to change who I was in order to fit in. But times have changed, obviously. And so, you know, being able to have that support is really what allowed me to become so confident in going out there and protesting and, you know, being somebody that a lot of times was doing the work on her own. Because, I'm not going to give out my age, but back when I was in high school, I did not have Muslim role models. There were no women out on the forefront who looked like me that I could look up to. So I had to find other activists, other people to look up to, and a lot of times if I didn't find someone, I just had to do it on my own. And I will tell you, it was hard. It is very hard to be the only person standing up against racism, against Islamophobia, against all forms of oppression. But I feel very lucky that I've had some good friends and my family's support along the way. So as a social justice activist, obviously, my work embodies all backgrounds and all forms of oppression, all marginalized communities. And that's why the work that CAIR does is very instrumental, because CAIR is an organization that not only works on issues that impact the civil rights of Muslims, but also civil rights of all marginalized communities. We have our government affairs department, while they're working on legislation that could be anti-Muslim in sentiment, can also be anti-Black, anti-immigrant, Latino, undocumented, so many different things, and we work for all of it. So when we are out there protesting the move in Jerusalem for the embassy, we're also out there protesting with the Dreamers. We're protesting with No Muslim Ban Ever, that's impacted people from across the world. So in working with other civil rights organizations, coalition building is very, very important. And from what I've heard about this school, I know that you guys have a lot of special groups for all different types of backgrounds. And the thing that I do when I work with youth, because I like to work with youth specifically in my job, is I like to encourage people to reach out to other groups on your campus and work with them. Because you never know when it might be you who's impacted. And I will tell you that having allies is going to help you fight a lot better. And having, coalitions and building coalitions with people is really going to create that strength. I mean, we've all seen over the past year how our administration has tried to create divisiveness in our society. But what we've seen is the opposite. We've seen people coming together like they've never come together before. There was an article recently that came out that talked about how, our president actually the way that he tried to create issues between different groups and organizations actually backfired. And that people are coming together more than ever. And it's really so beautiful to see that when I went to the Muslim ban rally 2 weeks ago on the anniversary of the first Muslim ban, that Muslims were actually the minority in the crowd. That the majority of the people that were in the crowd protesting and rallying beside us were actually not Muslim. Were actually people who didn't even have a stake in what was going on. But they realized that it's an injustice and they realized that it's wrong, so they were there to support us. So I encourage you, even if you don't think that something applies to you, you never know when that can turn on you. You never know what group is going to be next. We've seen a systematic injustice against black people in America. Okay, let's be honest, racism did not start with our current president. Okay, racism has been around for as long as this country has been around. And so we can't just think that we're gonna work for now, and once the president is gone, everybody can go back to their lives. Islamophobia has been around for a very long time. It was before September 11th. Most people think Islamophobia started with 9/11. It did not. Most people think Islamophobia started with our current president. It did not. These are things that have been around for a while. And we've obviously seen a lot of people in the past, over our history, who have been fighting against injustice. And I think really when we look at the work that CAIR does, one of the things that we always look to is the work of Malcolm X. Because Malcolm X was a black American Muslim. He was a civil rights activist. He was a leader. He was the person who embodied strength. He's the person who represented, the power that our communities have come to embody. And, we look at him as an inspiration in our work because a lot of the things that he did have laid the groundwork for the things that CAIR and other civil rights organizations have done. And as a Muslim, a lot of people always ask, why are you so passionate about social justice? Why do you care so much about providing, justice for different groups? Why don't you just care about your Muslims and your own people? Because in our religion, it teaches us, it tells us that we need to stand up against injustice. And there's actually a verse in the Quran. I don't have it memorized, so I'm just going to read it. O you who believe, stand out firmly for justice as witnesses to Allah, even against yourselves or your parents or your kin, and whether it be against rich or poor. For Allah can best protect both. Follow not the lust of your heart, lest you swerve. And if you distort justice or decline to do justice, verily Allah is well acquainted with all that you do. And that is a verse that I read every week to remind me the importance of all the work that I do on an individual basis and the work that our organization does. So the work that I do within CAIR is outreach and events. And basically, I go out into the community, I build relationships within the Muslim community as well as outside the Muslim community in order to teach people about Islam about Muslims, because I feel like a lot of times ignorance comes from not being educated enough, and then as well as offering resources to the Muslim community so that they know their rights, that they know what to do in case of, being bullied or, visited by law enforcement. And my goal in 2018 is actually to work more with the youth, because I've realized something. I've realized that our youth is where it's going to start. That is where the roots need to be planted. And so my focus this year has been on going to different campuses, college and high school, and speaking to the Muslim students how to better equip themselves against Islamophobia, how to educate others around them about Islam, in order to try to reduce a lot of that bullying that we've been seeing in these schools. So, being a Palestinian American, one of the things that's really been important in the last few years has been our allyship with the Black Lives Matter movement. And a lot of people used to wonder, what is the correlation? What does being Palestinian have to do with being black? One is, halfway across the world. Being black in America is very different. It is a struggle to be black in America, we know that. Being Palestinian in occupied Palestine is also a struggle. And it's very interesting to see how the two movements align, because the same tactics that are used against our black men in the US are also the same tactics used against Palestinians. And so if you talk to people who were in Ferguson, they said that the people who helped them deal with being like tear gas or maced were actually Palestinian activists who knew how to get rid of that stuff because they'd been through it. The people who are really out there protesting side by side and helping the Black Lives Matter movement are primarily Palestinians because they realize and understand that injustice. So being a Palestinian American, I can't discount anyone else's struggle. And nowadays, there are just so many issues that we have to deal with that intersectional activism is extremely, extremely important. There is no way, as a female, as a Muslim woman, as a Palestinian Muslim woman, that I can go out and protest for Palestine and not out there protesting for my brothers and sisters who are dreamers, my brothers and sisters who are black, my brothers and sisters who are immigrants, for refugees to be able to come to the US, against the Muslim ban. I mean, there is no reason that you should not be able to go out there and stand up with your fellow Americans and others. Oh, thank you. So let me talk now just about ways that you can get involved, actual concrete ways, because one of the things we like to do at CAIR is that when we report on something, we also like to do an action alert in order for people to know what they can do to help. Because it's great if I stand up here and talk all day, but if you guys are not able to take something away to be able to go back and actually impact it on your own, then I have not done my job. I've just wasted your time and I've wasted my time. So one of the first things that you can do, and I know you guys are in high school and you feel like you can't do anything, but right before the elections in November in Virginia, I actually was working with a few organizations on a Get Out the Vote event at one of the mosques. And we had about 200 high school kids from that area who came out, and they went out and they canvassed in the neighborhoods. We gave them a small lesson on what to say and what to do. We sent them with a chaperone, and we went out and we told them, hey, this is what you're going to do, inform people. We were not promoting a certain candidate. We were merely just informing all the residents in the area of each candidate and how they were voting on important issues. And these kids were able to firsthand experience going out and actually impacting the vote. And we saw a very, very positive outcome with record high numbers of Muslims going out to vote in the polls. And it wasn't just Muslim houses that they went to, obviously, but the majority of the area they were in was Muslim. So that's one thing that you can do. You can obviously join any group that goes out there and works on civic engagement. CAIR is one of them. So you guys can feel free to reach out to CAIR, and we will help connect you with whatever area you're in to go out and canvass. You can attend town halls. So when you're, representative, are you all DC residents? No? Okay, good, because we don't have representation in DC. So. But yeah, so you can go out into your town halls when your representatives are there. And if there are issues there that you are kind of not really feeling, then speak out. I mean, you don't have to be over 18 to go and speak. I've seen so many videos where we've seen kids as young as 8 years old questioning their representatives on policies that they're trying to pass. You guys can definitely go out and do that. You can definitely make an impact. If there's something that you're passionate about, I urge you to go out there and make sure that you get your voice heard. Next, protest. I love to protest. Like I said, it's in my blood. I'm Palestinian. That's what we've always done. But if you want to protest, I know Ashley said, sometimes activism is for yourself and you can do it quietly. But for those of you that really want to get out there and get your voice heard and you just want to scream and yell in the streets, find me. I'll find you a cause to go scream at. There's so many rallies nowadays in front of the White House. I mean, the Dreamers are out there literally every single day. So you can feel free to always reach out to CAIR and we will be able to help partner you with a cause that you're passionate about. Next, like I said, create coalitions within your student groups, within your communities, your churches, your mosques, your synagogues. Make sure that you guys go out there, try to have an interfaith coffee or interfaith lunch, get together, have some tea time, talk about issues that are important, but also just have fun. I mean, there's a lot of times where the mosques that I attend in Virginia will just have random fun events with the local church or the local synagogue. Because a lot of times we always forget that while we're fighting against injustice, we're also just human. And sometimes we just want to play basketball. Sometimes we want to play video games. We want to watch a movie together. We want to cook or have a potluck. And it doesn't always have to be such heavy, heavy things that you do as a form of activism. You could do activism through different hobbies and interests that you find in common with other people. Next, you could do op-eds or letters to the editor. So yes, I know that writing is probably not fun for you since you always have to do it in school anyways, but I will tell you that it is very important that your writing gets out there. As a writer myself, I used to write for my college paper. I had my own opinion column. And I'm going to date myself. After 9/11 happened, I was a sophomore in 9/11, the Iraq War started, and there was a conservative columnist in our newspaper, and I was the liberal. And when he would write something that was conservative, I would then come out with an article 2 days later that was not. And it was important because had I not had my column, had I not had the space to actually express my ideas, people would have only seen one side. And that's why letters to the editor are important and op-eds are important. Because you need to be able to show people that, yeah, you're probably thinking it at home, you probably posted a Facebook status about it or retweeted somebody, but really the only way to get it out there is by writing it and sending it in. Again, just because you're in high school does not mean that you cannot get published. I have a lot of contacts in the media. This is something that we really strive and we push for at CAIR in order to get our voices heard. We come out with op-eds all times of the year, whether it's something like the anniversary of the Muslim ban, whether it's Thanksgiving, Christmas, or just in general talking about Muslims in America and trying to shed some light on a lot of things that we do. Writing and being present in the media is very, very important. Representation matters. I'm very honored to be here because I know that there are probably Muslim students in this audience, and I know that they probably never expected to see a Muslim woman standing before them speaking. But I hope that I was able to give you some ideas of things that you can do, and hopefully that you guys can be that next generation that will, take over and start, colliding with the movement that we've started and go running with it. Because to be honest, I'm tired. I mean, we've been, I've been fighting for a lot of different causes for a lot of time, but this past year has been very, very tough. And the sooner that we can get more activists on the ground, the sooner that we can get more people standing up against injustice for all types of people, the better off we'll be. And I'm going to leave you with this quote. I was speaking to a group of students at American University, and they came from Indiana, and it was for a Martin Luther King seminar that they did. And they asked me a question, and they said, how do you guys at CAIR deal with all of the hate groups that are out there? There are always so many hate groups. They're always out there making false claims about Muslims and making false claims about the work that you do. And I said, yes, that's very true. Because if you guys ever Google CAIR, you will see there's so much smearing about our organization. But the one thing that I've realized is that every time I've ever seen a hate group create a protest or have a hashtag on Twitter and try to do like this whole campaign throughout the day, they are always outnumbered by people who are standing up against injustice. So the thought I'm going to leave you with is that the power of love is always going to overcome hate. Thank you.